Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to meet our chickens. Barack, Kim Jong, and Putin. I know these are unique names for pets, but we love it. We will learn about cool facts about chickens and then we'll do insanely cool egg experiment. So let's meet our feather friends first. Let's learn some chicken facts. A baby chicken is called a chick. An adult female chicken is called a hen, and an adult male chicken is called a rooster. Not all chickens look the same. There are more than 100 breeds of chickens in the world. All of the chickens in one breed have feathers with the same color and pattern. A word breed means a particular type of chickens. This picture shows 7 breeds of chickens. How is each one different? I see Buff Brahma, White Leghorn, Derby Red Cap, White Lace Red Cornish, Silver Campine, Dominic, and New Hampshire Red. So how each one is different? I see different colors of feathers. I see different shapes of feather, and chickens are also, some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, some have skinny tails, some has wide tails, some have more longer tails, some have shorter tails. Also their wattles and beaks and combs are different. So let's look at parts of a chicken. This picture shows the main parts of an adult chicken. Chickens have feathers and wings, but they cannot fly very far. They get around by walking. Chickens have red combs and wattles. A wattle is a red skin underneath a chicken's beak. Chickens have claws. Chickens eat feed, which is a mixture of grain. They also like to eat grass, bugs, and many more. How do I keep my chickens safe? For chicken danger can come from many directions. During the day, your chicken will stay alert and run to safety if predators threatens. At night, she will need a protection like shelter, which is a coop to keep out hungry foxes and other animals. We have animals like raccoons and bobcats, foxes and cougars in the area that we have to protect our chickens, so we close our coop gate every night to keep them safe. We lost 2 chickens a month ago to a bobcat who came at night and grabbed 2 of our chickens. And some places also snakes and other animals can hunt for chickens. Let's talk about our science experiment. We are going to use scientific methods to study eggs. The scientific method is a way of learning about the world around us and answering questions. The key difference between the scientific method and other ways of acquiring knowledge is forming a hypothesis and then testing it with an experiment. In our previous video, we talked about scientific methods. Scientific methods consist of several steps. First step is we're going to ask a question. We're going to ask, what will happen to an egg if we place that in vinegar, water, or orange juice? Then we're going to form a hypothesis. Before I do that, my next step is doing the research about eggs. And what I learned when people did this experiment before, and what I learned from my research, that people put eggs in water, vinegar, and orange juice, and when they placed eggs in vinegar, the shell got thinner and the eggs became rubbery. So I think when I place eggs in water, I think the shell will stay the same. if I place egg in vinegar, I think something will happen to the shell. I think the shell will get thin. And if I put it in orange juice, I think it might also get thinner, or maybe we'll get some orange color on the shell. So this would be my hypothesis. And next, I'm going to design the experiment. So I'm going to prepare all my materials. And for this experiment, you need 3 glasses or 3 plastic cups. In one, you will put water, vinegar, and orange juice. Then you'll need 3 eggs. So you can just use whatever eggs you have at home. You also will need ruler if you want to measure your eggs and see what happens if you place them in the water or vinegar or orange juice, and see if the size of the egg will change. You also can use thumbs to pick up your eggs, or you can just use your hands. You might need a towel in case you spill something. The next step, we're going to form a hypothesis, and for that you might use a notebook to record your observations, or you can download the recording sheet that I have in the description below and record your observations on that sheet. First step, you're going to write your 3 eggs, 3 liquids for your eggs. So for example, water, vinegar, and orange juice. Then you're going to measure your eggs. So when you measure your egg, you can use a ruler, or you can use a measuring tape. And it is a little bit easier, and you can measure them in inches or centimeters. I like centimeters, it's easier to record, so I measured. So my egg number 1, which I'm going to place in water, I recorded 5 centimeters, then vinegar 6 centimeters, and then my last one is 5.5 centimeters. So the next step is we're going to record our hypothesis. So in your notebook, you're going to write, what do you think will happen to the egg? For example, I think that if I place an egg in water, I think nothing will change. I think egg will stay the same. And you're going to record it in your notebook. The next step, you're going to think vinegar. Okay, I'm going to place an egg in vinegar. I know that vinegar might change the shell, so I'm going to write the shell will get thin. And finally, if I place it in orange juice, I think that the shell will get thinner as well, and also will change color. Okay, the next step after that, we are going to do actual experiment, and this is the fun part where you get to see what happens to an egg. Yeah, it's okay. We'll watch this. So let's take our first egg and place it in water and see what will happen to the egg. As I placed it, I look at the water and I see that there's really nothing going on. All I can see is the egg, and it looks like it went all down to the bottom of the cup. The next egg, I'm going to place in vinegar, and I'm going to see what happened. And as I place egg in the vinegar solution, I can see some bubbles forming on the shell. So something is happening, so I know that vinegar is acidic. And so the vinegar reacts with the shell and forms bubbles or foam around it. And the bubbles are coming up to the surface. So when you put egg in the vinegar, you should see some reaction. And I also see that the egg is floating down at the bottom as well. So this is the vinegar. And we're going to observe that, and we'll come back tomorrow and we'll see what happens to the egg. And I will see, will I see more bubbles or will it stop? So we're going to come and check that later. And then the final cup is orange juice. So I'm going to place my last egg in orange juice. And as I look at that in the cup, I see an egg. It's kind of floating up on the top, but I don't see any reaction at that moment. All I see is eggs swimming in the water. So let's look back at the vinegar again. If I look at the vinegar cup, I see that the egg is covered with foam or bubbles. So I know that there is some kind of a reaction is happening between the vinegar and the eggshell. I'm curious to see what will happen tomorrow when I come back and check on that. So this is the first step of our experiment. I'm going to leave it over on the counter, and I'm going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to see what happened. Today is day 2 of our egg experiment. If I look at the glass with water, I see that the egg is still at the bottom of the glass and no bubbles or changes to the eggshell. Next, let's look at the glass with orange juice. I see some bubbles on the surface of the juice as well as some discoloration of the shell. Finally, our glass with vinegar. I see foam and bubbles are forming on the surface of the egg. So I'm going to rinse it with water and then look at the egg. What I see is that most of the shell has been dissolved through a chemical reaction between vinegar and the shell. You can actually see through the shell and there are only few shell spots left. I'm going to place the egg into the vinegar and come back to check on it tomorrow. Today is day 3 of our eggs experiment. And I apologize for the noise on the background because we are roasting chicken for dinner, so sorry about that. Let's look at our 3 glasses and let's look at our eggs and see what happened during our experiment. So the first one I'm going to look is at the water glass, and if I look inside the glass, I do not see any changes to the eggshell. So let's take it out and actually look at the shell, and if I look at that, I still see the whole shell is intact and there's no changes happening to the egg. I'm going to measure the egg using the measuring tape and record that and see what happened to the egg. If I record that, and remember the one that I placed in water was 5 centimeters, and looks like the size did not change, so I know that there's no changes to the egg if you place it in the water. Next glass is the glass with orange juice, and if you look at the glass, you can see that the orange juice bubbled and all of the bubbles actually escaped. So if you look at my tray, I found lots of foam bubbles on the bottom of my tray, and I'm going to get inside. I'm going to move it out a little bit and then see what happened to the egg, because I see a kind of explosion in my orange juice and everything feels very slimy. So I'm going to look at the egg. See a lot of foam forming around it, but I still see most of the shell is still intact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pitcher with water and I'm going to rinse it, and I'm going to see what happened to the shell. Okay, so here is the egg after I washed, and I can see there is some discoloration of the egg. I see there's more orange or dark. I see that some of the eggshell is removed, but it's still pretty much intact. And if I measure the egg, it's still at the same size, at 5 centimeters. If I look at my recording from another day, I said if orange juice, I'm sorry, was 5.5 centimeters, 5.5 centimeters, and it still stayed the same. So I know there's only some changes to the shell happening, like I see that some of that removed, but most of it's still intact. And the final glass is the glass with vinegar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse my hand, make sure my hand is clean. I'm going to take my egg out, and what I see is that most of the, actually all of the shell has been removed, and the egg feels really rubbery. So why does the shell gone and why is the egg feels rubbery? The eggshell is basic, and the vinegar is an acid. So when you place an egg in vinegar, it reacts, causing the shell to dissolve, leaving only the rubbery membrane holding the egg together. If you're lucky, you can try to do that with real egg, and you can try to remove some of the shell without breaking an egg. You should see a membrane. So you can try cracking an egg and removing a little bit, and if you do that, you should see a membrane under. So this is what happened to this egg. When we placed that in vinegar, all the shell was removed and then the membrane is left, so that's why it feels so rubbery. I'm going to rinse it really quick so we can look at the egg again. As I look at the egg, I also see that the egg is bigger. So I'm going to measure it and see how much the size of the egg changed when I place it in vinegar solution. I'm going to use my measuring tape again, and I'm going to measure the egg. If I measure it, the egg is about 7 centimeters. So I'm going to record that, and I'm going to say that the change is actually, it grew almost by 1 centimeter. But why does this happen? It is because of a process called osmosis. Through the osmosis, some of the liquid or water moves through the membrane into the egg. And it does it until it reaches the equilibrium between the amount of water inside the egg membrane and the surrounding liquid. If it doesn't stop at the equilibrium, the egg would get so large it would eventually pop. Since there is no hard shell to keep the egg small, it expands and grows. Since vinegar removed all of the shell, there's nothing to hold the egg together anymore, so the egg grows bigger and bigger. And if you leave the egg on the counter, it will actually shrink because some of the liquid will start to evaporate, and what you're going to see is the egg that is going to be, the egg is going to get smaller, and you can see it will shrink from this size to a smaller size. So one of the fun things to do in the end of this experiment is you can put the egg in the bowl and you can bounce it. And you can bounce the egg and see what will happen. You can see that it doesn't break when I throw it in. It stays together because of the membrane. So if I bounce the egg in there, nothing actually happens. It's bouncy as the ball. Let's shine some flashlight through the egg and see what's inside. And if I shine the light through, you should be able to see the egg yolk and the egg white that is around it and all of the other parts of the egg. I have an egg here that I already put in the vinegar and I let it sit on the counter and actually dry it up a little bit. And you can also see the egg yolk even without flashlight. As the water disappears or comes out of the membrane, you can see the egg yolk really well, and the egg will shrink. Remember, if you leave it out on your counter, you can do that and see what will happen. Finally, you can do a poke test and you can try to break the membrane of the egg and see what's inside the egg. So as we talk about, it's really rubbery and bouncy, it's really hard to break, so I'm gonna first try to do it with my hand. Oh, you can actually do it with your hand. And then if you look at the egg inside, you should see the membrane. It's just basically a sac around the egg. Right, here's the membrane. That's the one that made the egg rubbery. And then you should see the egg yolk and the egg white. And basically this is the egg. So it kind of stayed intact even though it was in vinegar. So the membrane around the egg is actually supporting and protecting the inside of the egg. So it's actually very important to the egg. You can also put the egg into the food coloring, water and food coloring, and see what will happen. What if, you can also think of a question like, what will happen if I leave egg longer in vinegar for a week and see what will happen? Will it dissolve the membrane completely? Will it dissolve the membrane or the egg? Or you can try some different liquids, like you can try corn syrup, you can try coffee or any other Coke or Sprite or any kind of other liquid, and to see what will happen to the egg. And this is the fun part of the experiment. You can play around and you can learn some things about eggs and chemical reactions between egg and the solution. If you like this video, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe, and come back for more fun episodes. Until next time.